Hello，你好，欢迎回来，Welcome back to Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Tiger on July 24. Chinese accent coming through. I was thinking maybe it's 21st, and I remember it's 24, so it's turning 24. 24 2024. Okay, so that was a bit of a mouthful. Anyway, um, you'll have to excuse me. My throat, my voice have not fully recovered. Still feeling a little weak. So this is not going to be as animated or as well spoken as the other Wisdom Wednesday episodes. Were they well spoken? I don't know. You guys tell me. Um, Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the four great beauties from Chinese history. Okay, these are four beautiful women throughout Chinese history. First, I want to clarify something because a lot of time people have this mistaken idea that when we talk about the four great beauties, people think that these must be the greatest, most beautiful women in Chinese history. No, okay. Um, these four women were collectively known as the Four Great Beauties because each of them were very important politically uh, for their time. So, politically, they achieved something, whether for good or whether for bad, they had a lot of influence. Historically, they were important. So, they were known as the Four Great Beauties. It got nothing to do with being the most beautiful throughout Chinese history. So next time when people tell you that these were the four most beautiful women throughout Chinese history, no, they weren't. They were probably among some of the most beautiful women, but there's nowhere in historical record that claim they were the four most beautiful women in Chinese history. The four great beauties are called great beauties just because of their political influences of their time. With that said, obviously they have to be beauty. They have to be drop dead gorgeous to be called the four great beauties. And in fact, they were so beautiful that even today, the Chinese descriptors, phrases used to describe the standard, the highest standard of beauty that were result of these women. These descriptors, okay, I'm going to teach it to you guys today. There's 8 words, four phrases altogether, and these are again words, phrases used to describe uh, really, really beautiful women. Okay, so the first one is 沉鱼. 沉鱼 means 沉 means to sink to the bottom. 鱼 means fish. 沉鱼. So 成语 came from our beauty number one. Beauty number one was a lady called Xi Shi from the chaos period of spring and autumn, about 3 or 400 BC. I'm not going to go into her entire backstory and all that stuff. I think those backstories actually deserve their own episode. So the story went that one day when Shishi was at the riverside and she went to the river to wash some clothes, and when she bent down to wash clothes, the fish in the water saw her face and realized how beautiful she was. And apparently, the fish were so entranced by her beauty that they stopped moving and they sunk to the bottom of the river and drowned. Fish sunk to the bottom of the river and drowned. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. Obviously, this couldn't be true, but uh, it's a story that's been told for thousands of years, and that gave birth to the phrase "成鱼之美," the 成鱼 beauty. Okay, this is to describe a woman is so beautiful that she has the power to make fish sink to the bottom of the river. The next phrase is 落雁. 落雁. 落 means to fall from the sky. 雁means geese, like Canada geese. Uh, so this is inspired by our next beauty, who is Wang Zhaojun from the Han Dynasty. Wang Zhaojun had a really tragic life. She almost didn't get picked to be the emperor's concubine. And then after she finally got selected to be the emperor's concubine, she then was married off to the northern barbarians as a peace offering to their tribe. And after her husband, the barbarian king, died, she was forced to marry his son because that was their barbaric custom at the time. So the story goes that when she was sad and thinking of her home, missing China, missing her own people, Wang Zhaojun would take out her harp and play her harp, and her beauty and the beauty of her voice caused the migrating bird, the migrating geese, to fall from the sky because they were so busy listening to her music and looking at her, they forgot to flap their wings. So that gave birth to the phrase "落雁," fallen geese. Again, it's to describe a woman's beauty. It's sort of like the same uh, thing as saying someone is a drop dead gorgeous. Our third phrase is 闭月. 闭月. 闭 means to close off, to shut down. 月 means moon, the moon in the sky. Now, this comes from our third beauty, who was also from the Han Dynasty, and her name was Diao Chan. Diao Chan is not strange to those people who study Romance of the Three Kingdoms and people who pay attention to that part of Chinese history, because Diao Chan was very instrumental in getting rid of one of the most villainous, most evil bastards in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms time. Technically, it was a little bit before the Three Kingdoms, because at the time when Diao Chan was doing her thing, the Three Kingdoms weren't formed yet. So this was roughly around year 50, I think. So year 50, year 60, or thereabout, when China was falling into chaos and the Han Dynasty was uh, coming to an end. It is said that Diao Chan, her beauty was such that if she went out at night, the moon would look at her and the moon would disappear from the sky, and the moon would feel ashamed of its own appearance, and the moon would be shielded by cloud. So yeah, that's kind of scary, right? If someone has that kind of power, it's like she walk outside and the moon is gone from the sky. That's some magical crazy shit. Anyway, so the 闭月 beauty came from Diao Chan. So and this means a woman is so beautiful that she can cause the moon to go away. Our fourth phrase is 羞花. 羞 means embarrassed, shy, ashamed. 花, flower. So 羞花 beauty means that a woman so beautiful that she can cause the flowers to feel ashamed of themselves. And this comes from a very famous beauty, our beauty number four, Yang Guifei, concubine Yang from the Tang Dynasty. Now, those for those of you that don't know, I'm going to put it in context for you guys. In Western society, a lot of time when people want to talk about voluptuous, beautiful, voluptuous women that are not skinny and the women that have some meat on their bones, people like to use Marilyn Monroe. And even though I looked at her stats, really, like Marilyn Monroe wasn't what we think of as voluptuous today. Like comparing to today's standard, Marilyn Monroe was skinny as hell. Okay, but to Chinese people, a lot of time when, especially historians, when they want to talk about a voluptuous, beautiful, voluptuous woman with curves, Yang Guifei from Tang Dynasty is the one that they use for example because uh, not only her, yeah, during the Tang Dynasty, people really was more into curvy, voluptuous women. So Yang Guifei being chosen to be the emperor's favorite concubine obviously was not a twig. Let's just say she was nice and round and curvy. Uh, so story goes that Yang Guifei was so beautiful that whenever she went into the garden, the flowers would droop. The flowers would, uh, like, they would get all wilted. They would wither and almost like they were going to die because of how beautiful she was, and the flowers would feel ashamed of themselves. Again, that sounds like some horrifying weird magical power. Imagine if you walk into a garden and anywhere you go, all the flowers just wither up and die. That to me doesn't sound very complimentary. But anyway, so those are the four descriptors of standard, highest standard for describing a beautiful woman that's still being used by Chinese people today. When you want to describe a woman and you don't know how to describe how beautiful she is, then you usually say she has 沉鱼落雁 or 闭月羞花 look that her look can sink the fish to the bottom of the river, drop the geese from the sky, make the moon go away, and wither the flowers in the garden. Those are the highest praise a beautiful woman can receive. Now, as we all know, and it's kind of cliche by this time, nobody is perfect. Okay, and to illustrate that, today I'm going to give you a piece of history that many people, even people who study Chinese history, do not know. This is a very deep dive, but at the same time, very interesting trivia, something that you can pull out to amaze your friends with. Uh, these four great beauties, they are not perfect either. They were not perfect, right? Despite what people like to tell you, right? Again, some people like to tell you that these were the four most beautiful women in Chinese history. No, they were not. Okay, they were definitely among the most beautiful, but they were not the most beautiful. But as beautiful as they were, and being able to sink the fish and drop the bird and hide the moon and wither the flower, they had flaws. And I'm going to tell you today what their flaws are one at a time. And for those of you who are interested, you can even go look up their portrait and their depiction, and you will find that what I'm telling you today is true. Okay, so we'll start with number one, Xi Shi from the spring and autumn chaotic period, about 300-400 BC. Xi Shi is usually w- obviously we're going chronologically, so Xi Shi is not being put as the first one just because she's the most beautiful. She's just the oldest. Uh, Xi Shi, okay, great beauty. A lot of people in Chinese history, even in today's pop culture, like to say puts Xi Shi up as the great beauty. Uh, but Xi Shi had a flaw, and her flaw was her feet were abnormally large. Okay, and you can see this in her portrait that most of the other women of the time they were very willing to wear like regular shoes and they were willing to show their feet when they did their portrait. But when you look at most depiction of Xi Shi, uh, one thing is she always wore very, very long skirt and long robe that cover her feet. And even in places where her feet would show, she wore large, blocky sandals that sort of disguise how large her feet really were. And this was her husband's idea, actually. Her husband always felt ashamed of how big Jesus' feet were, so he designed these wooden sandals for her to wear so her feet wouldn't look so out of place. These wooden sandals, by the way, later got copied by Japanese people. So, no, Japanese people did not come up with wooden sandals. Chinese people did. It was Xisu's husband who came up with these wooden sandals, and the whole point was to disguise her feet so they wouldn't look so monstrously big. Our second beauty going forward to Han Dynasty, Wang Zhaojun, our tragic beauty. Wang Zhaojun, again, many people said she was like devastatingly beautiful, drop dead gorgeous. Her flaw was that Wang Zhaojun had really bad posture and she had slouched shoulders. To hide this, Wang Zhaojun was never depicted without wearing either a mink stole or a cloak around her body. So no matter where you see Wang Zhaojun's portrait, you will never see her shoulders exposed. You will never see her without something covering her shoulder and upper body. This was mainly to hide her poor posture, slouching posture, and her slouched shoulders. Our third beauty, going to the end of Han Dynasty, we have Diao Chan. Diao Chan. By the way, I want to segue a little bit here and say, historically, there's no proof of Diao Chan's existence. Okay, Xi Shi, Wang Zhaojun, Yang Guifei, those three were proven to be real people, but Diao Chan have not been proven to be real. So for the sake of our four great beauty, we'll keep her there. But just understand that, like historically, Diao Chan has not been proven to be real. Now, Diao Chan, drop dead gorgeous, but her flaw was said to be her abnormally small ears that made her face look bit too big. Honestly, her face was just regular size, but because she has tiny little ears, that her face just looked too big by comparison. So to counteract that, uh, Jiao Chan always wore these huge hoop earrings that almost dangle down to her shoulders. So these earrings would uh, accentuate her ears and gave some counterbalance, counter beat to the size of her face, so her face wouldn't look so out of place. Last but not least, Yang Guifei, our beautiful concubine Yang from the Tang Dynasty, our curvy, voluptuous beauty. Honestly, I mean, when we say curvy and voluptuous, we are being very nice about it. Like, if you go by most of what people consider to be beautiful nowadays, especially in the Chinese circle, Yang Guifei and those beauty from the Tang Dynasty would just be called fat women, right? Uh, but at at that time, she was a great beauty. She was considered to be a great beauty. Uh, Now I'm not attempting to body shame or anything. Like personally, I like curvy women myself, so I have no problem with calling Yang Guifei a beauty. I'm sure she was, but just calling it how it is to a lot of people, she would be considered really fat. Okay. Um. Now, since that was the trend of the time, we won't use that as her flaw. But beside her body shape, her voluptuous body, Yang Guifei had another very problematic flaw to her. What is this flaw? Well, this great beauty, this beautiful concubine, Yang Guifei, had a serious body odor problem. Aha, I guess I'm guessing most of you wouldn't have imagined that, right? Yang Guifei was known to have to bathe multiple times a day in water infused with flower petals. And this was actually the origin of why people said wherever she went, the flowers would wither and droop and die. It got nothing to do with her beauty shaming the flowers. It just where she had to pick flower petals and infuse her bath water with them multiple times a day. And the reason she had to do that was to mask her body odor. She had a serious condition with her sweat gland, so she sweated a lot, and she was really stinky. I hate to put it that way, but she was really stinky. So there you have it, the four great beauty of China. None of them were perfect. Nobody's perfect. So in this day and age where we should all be mindful and all remember that everybody can be beautiful and everybody have flaws, it's important to remember that even these historical women, these four great beauties of China, had flaws too. Thank you for checking out today's episode. I'll be back again tomorrow for some Toys Thursday. For now, 谢谢 and 再见。